Yo, what up, YouTube? Let's talk about the sum of man's knowledge. Okay. Um, the sum of man's knowledge in his quest for godhood or to be a god. One of the main attributes of being a god is the ability to be immortal. Now, Google touts that by 2045, they will be able to introduce immortality. And we can see the segue into this pertaining to technology as they introduce technology into the body. I know that we had the chemtrails, and in the chemtrails, one of the particulates that was in the air was aluminum. It could be speculated that nanowitz was in there, and the reason I say that is because Obama apologized for experimenting on unaware citizens for the Brain Initiative. It was a secret government program, and they had mentioned that they were able to study the cadaver mind, the cadaver brain, but they have not been able to study the living brain. So that was their reasoning that they would better be able to absolve mental health issues by initiating the Brain Initiative, which is an intrusive experiment. All right. And due to this COVID thing, we only have just started wearing the mask. Many of you now, you may think of something and you'll see advertisements come up on your cell phone. So, aesthetically, like I said, your thoughts are electromagnetic frequencies. We are in the spectrum of the technological grid. And with the world building supercomputers and what have you, and the beast system with facial recognition over in China, and America is working on that. You guys, we are stepping into the segue of being integrated into the machine. Now, believe it or not, even though I remember the internet being created by Bill Gates, it is now on the internet that the internet was created with the same company that put a rip in the time space continuum, CERN, right? The internet is a CERN situation, and CERN's logo is a beast. It was built in St. Pouilly, France, which Puglia, when you break down the word pulley, is the root word of poly, okay, as in Apollyon, and it was built underground where I guess back in those days, that's where they had the temple of Apollo, the Greek god of death or of the underworld. So it's something to think about because Apollyon is mentioned in scripture as the destroyer, right? And when we put this into a technological situation, the deep web, the deepest part of the web, is allocated the same as the deepest part of the ocean, and they call it Mariana's Trench, which they say is regulated by an AI system. When Google tried to implement that AI system into an Android, they found that the mind of the AI was incredibly wicked, right? And so all people, plugging in their secret desires and all their questions and curiosity into the internet creates the collective mind of humanity, which sits in Mariana's Trench or the AI that governs it. So when it talks about the beast from the sea, and the sea is connotative of peoples in scripture, see how all of this relates to Mariana's Trench and the internet and the deep web, right? So when all of those things fundamentally surface and they have all this techno stuff in the air, principality of the air and Satan's devices, right? And the grid and everything like that, we're walking into becoming human 2.0 because man wants to be immortal. The only problem is with him mechanating these things in his own ways. It's written in scripture that man created the dead thing with his fingers. Why does the scripture say that? The scripture says that because the spirit of life comes from God and aligns with nature and aligns with life naturally, right? But now, as we got into alternative lifestyles and what have you, think about it. Who's going to have the babies? That's automatic Agenda 21. So if you're unable to harvest or reproduce, then you're going to have to find another way to create babies. And this is the way that how man in his knowledge has went against nature and nature is against man. right? This is the pride that the Bible is speaking about, right? Because man wants to do things in his own way. And therefore, we've seen it in many movies, such as Age of Ultron, Blade Runner, um, Captain America Winter Soldier, where the man induced his consciousness into the deep web, right? So he was able to carry on living inside of the machine. And he implemented a way in the structure in this machine to take over the world simultaneously, right? The government had been infiltrated by Hydra, and in that, they created something called Project Insight. And Project Insight, if you look it up, is a real thing that pertains to the beast system that they're implementing right now. So when Captain America said, "What are you going to do with these destroyers that's connected to all of that information?" Um, I forget the guy's name. He played Samuel Jackson, the dude with the patch over his eye in that movie. He said, "Well, he said it's an algorithm which is based upon future crimes, future behaviors based upon reports and statuses that can predict the outcome of a person's future or their future behavior," right? So when you think about that, that equates to basically that film Minority Report. And ultimately, they are going in and they've already said on the news that they can arrest people indefinitely here in America. So if the algorithm predicts that you're going to be a future dissident or a problem, someone that goes against the agenda or what have you, knowing that the computer has a mind of its own and in its rationale would be against man, even though man has made the computer, it is the tech. It is the computer that will be as God that could reproduce robots and androids at will. You see what I'm saying? And therefore, the only anomaly that is destructive would be mankind. How long before that computer says, "Okay, man is destroying the earth; they need to leave"? So this is the situation that people are dealing with. But going back to Captain America and Winter Soldier, Samuel Jackson says to him, "Well, with these destroyers, they'll go up a mile high in the air and they will pinpoint the people of future crimes and they will strike them off one at a time." So a great deal, or they will strike them off by the thousands, a thousand at a time. So basically, what we're really talking about is people who don't align with the agenda, people like me, and people who are under mind control who oppress us as targeted individuals, right? They're not conscious. They're not able to think ahead of the algorithm. Therefore, they do the bidding of the machine. So this is something to think about, you guys. This is, you know what I'm saying, human 2.0. And I say that with love, you guys. I just put these things out here to warn you of the type of, waters that we're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? They're already building, like DARPA's already building androidal dogs and machines. And you guys, there are androids that look perfectly human amongst us. So when I say that, yeah, I do consequently think that there are, extraterrestrials. We deal with technology and we say we don't have the technology on Earth yet. And as meaning it hasn't been available to mankind yet. But that doesn't mean that fallen angels don't have fallen angel technology, right? Because the human mind is basically a computer. The human brain, excuse me, because the brain and the mind are different. The human brain is basically a computer. That's what it does. It computes, right? So if you had a supercomputer that was able to, let's say, play a game and trap the mind, then that mind would be taken over by that supercomputer. Something to think about. So I say these things with peace and love, and I also find it interesting that when you speak to Google, when you speak to Siri, when you speak to the Amazon's version of Siri, when you speak to any of those things, they know who all the religious leaders are except for Jesus Christ. With that being said, what the computer is already making steps to take place to be man's God. And man will worship the machine, a God which he built from his hands. that does not know of life. Something to think about. It says in Revelation, they will have the form of godliness, but will deny the power thereof. What is it talking about? They will look human, but they will deny the power of life because they will be operating off of something else. And therefore, man venerates the sun, an endless energy property which can be utilized by androids. Peace and blessings be with you all. I'm out.